sinking into the silence, reaching out for something you may never find, looking for a reason not to lose your mind. Feel like you're caught in a world you don't belong to, praying that you'll make it home. I know you're scared that the place you love is gone. Don't fear what you do not know. You're caught in a world you don't belong to, praying that you'll make it home. I know you're scared that the place you love is gone. Don't fear what you do not know. Feel like you're caught in a world you don't belong to, praying that you'll make it home. I know you're scared that the place you love is gone. Don't fear what you do not know.
Hey, what's up, everybody? We are back. Another week of Featured, and our special guest, our very own Pastor Vince. So,
what's up?
You guys voted, you chose, you selected, so he's here. And we have our favorite chocolate sandwich cookie. I've never called them that, but that's what it says on the package.
Not brought to you by Oreo Double Stuff.
Family size.
The family size.
Because we're not wimps. Do you think we'll eat them all?
That depends on how many questions you ask.
How many can we get in 20-ish minutes?
I think we can get a row.
A row? We can do a row. One time, have you ever done an Oreo eating contest?
No, because I savor each Oreo, and eating them fast would defeat the purpose.
I don't know. They're just that good, aren't they?
They are that good.
So I did one time in high school. One of the cheerleaders thought she could beat me in a contest, so we each had our own pack. She was passing them down the couch to everybody else as I was just
cheating,
pounding Oreos. Yes.
Gotcha.
But if you don't know, again, we talked last week, and I mentioned that I don't like to get stuff on my fingers. I don't like to get dirty and stuff. So I have a trick for you. He doesn't agree with this, but you take a fork and you stick it in the filling, the delicious cream filling, and when you dunk it, you get a nice full all-around dunking.
Long. You're in too long.
No, you have to wait till it dies, like the bubbles stop. And then it's nice and
it's the most disturbing way to eat an Oreo I've ever seen.
But now it's perfect all the way around. It's the same. There's none on your fingers, and it's just good.
What you just witnessed is blasphemy. Okay, it's a biblical term. You can look that up if you need to, but it's not of God what just happened. If you take the cookie, dip just about 3/4 of the cookie, then when you take it out, you do have the moist, as Dallas enjoys that word.
I was trying not to say it.
I know, I understand. Yeah, you have the cookie that's milk saturated, but still a little bit of crunch
Saturated, that's a good word.
on the dry end. So,
Not a twist, though. You don't get the full effect if you twist. You get half and half.
right, you don't want to do
Or
that.
you get the weird split of the cream in the middle and on one side.
No, just eat the cookie.
So, good deal. Well, we're just going to jump right into it. We got the bucket of questions, and we'll ask you some
Okay.
leadership questions and those kind of things in a minute. But we'll just see what we have in here. They're
Now,
random.
is this a bucket of questions or a bucket of questions?
Well, it's not branded, so it can be whatever we want. I
All
guess.
right, all right. The bucket of questions.
Whatever guests can name it whatever they want. So if you notice that, I never noticed this though, serving of Oreos is per 2 cookies.
That's disturbing.
And we just talked about eating a sleeve or a whole package. And when I ask a question, I'll answer it after you two. And when you
Okay.
ask one, we'll go back and forth. But, here we go. Let's just start it with a bang. What would you do if you won the lottery?
If I won the lottery, I think I've said this before in a sermon. I think I would do the things. I would buy the house, the pool, those kind of things. I know the spiritual answer. I'm supposed to say I would feed starving kids everywhere, and I would do that obviously with parts of it. But I think I would like to be like the Ty Pennington, just like secret drop-offs on people's porch, where like, here's a new car, and then just ding dong ditch them, ring the doorbell, big bow in the yard, and then run away. I think that would be kind of what I would enjoy doing. I enjoy seeing people.
The reactions?
Yeah, the reaction is fun, and I cry anytime I watch Extreme Home Makeover.
I cried watching America's Got Talent last night.
Is it on? See,
The first episode was last night.
the first episode last, yeah. So I haven't seen it, but I will most likely cry too. So, but yeah, for me it'd be the Ty Pennington thing. I think I would be, I would probably do some bucket list stuff.
So what is on the bucket list then?
For me, it's going to watch a baseball game at Yankee Stadium in New York City, and then to drive up to Cooperstown and go to the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Cool.
For you, winning the lottery as a next-gen pastor, what kind of craziness would you dive into?
An LED wall in the youth building.
Okay, there you go. Appreciate that.
Yeah. No. In that, let's see. Of course, you're giving and everything over and above. So,
Right.
I mean, you have a surplus, so go over and above on that. Keep your priorities in line. Kaylee and I actually had this conversation a little while back. It's hard to wrap your brain around what you would do. Because we watched Aladdin, and it went to, what would your 3 wishes be?
Gotcha.
And really, everybody's 3 wishes are going to be about the same when it comes down to it. You want health. You want to make sure that everyone is taken care of in your family financially, whether it's college planning or those trust funds, that stuff kind of set up.
Right.
But it would be that set up, make sure that Beck and kids or whoever we have on down the line, that's not a plug, that's not saying something
Congratulations
right now. But just that those are in place. And whether it's college, trade school, or an adventure that he wants to embark on as a creator or whatever, that's taken care of. I would say buy a truck, maybe trade in truck, buy a different truck. But since I just bought one, and Kaylee loves the big house, farmhouse kind of on a few acres kind of thing. So set her up with the porch.
I could see
and
you
all that.
farming.
I would give it a shot.
I'm just kidding. I can't see you farming.
So, I mean, you never know unless you try.
Right.
But,
Right. Cows love skinny jeans. I've heard it.
Wranglers.
There you go.
They were back to that conversation. But I would have, probably, you don't even have to use them. Season tickets to Thunder. You can even do season tickets to the Yankees and just go whenever you want.
Right. Just fly in on the private jet.
Exactly.
You know how preachers with private jets goes, so I don't know if I'd go that route. I'll use your jet. If you win it, I'll use your jet.
And then
There
you
go.
But yeah, I would, splurge here and there, but make sure family's taken care of is the big
Yeah,
thing.
I think those are the big things. Like you said, everybody defaults, it's health, it's security, and then pleasure would probably follow that, whatever that might be.
Right.
So, all right, I'm going to dive into the next one here.
You're just straight into it.
I'm straight into it. What do you like to do for fun, and what do you do in your spare time?
For fun, I like to play 2K. Like, as just killing time at home, play 2K. If it's going outside, it's playing golf. But honestly, a lot of things I like to do for fun revolve around being here. Because I just love church, and we've had that conversation before. But I just love watching people interact. I love watching things take place on stage. I love online interactions. I just love church because I think, for me, that's fun.
Right.
And so it's going to stem around that. And then adventures, going on vacation, going to the beach, watching Beck do new things, whether it's playing a sprinkler or see what sand feels like, just watching him in those areas. Right now, he's helped me work on the truck.
Yeah, I've seen the pictures the other day with the matching hats. It was nice.
Yeah, that wasn't really even planned. It just he doesn't like wearing a shirt right now.
It's good.
But
fitting.
He's always taking it off at school. They're telling him to put it back on. And then he's fascinated right now wearing hats. He'll go grab one of mine. He actually walked out of our bedroom the other day, put one on, and goes to the door and says, bye. And so
ready to go.
He's ready to go.
Yeah.
But
so for me, I'm not good at hobbies. Like, Braden, my son, he really loves to fish and loves to do those kind of things. Parker's a gamer. He loves to do that. So, I would say my kids are better at having a hobby than I am because I'm like you. I enjoy church. We do like travel. I'm a beach guy.
I love the beach.
I could just sit. I don't even have to swim. I could just sit under the umbrella, listen to it, doze off. I enjoy reading a lot, so I guess maybe that's a hobby because I read about anything, whatever it is, from magazines to books to whatever. So that would be the thing that I say would be, if I had hobbies, those would be it: traveling and books and sleeping, napping on the beach.
You gotta be careful of napping on the beach, though.
Yeah, you get sunburned. There's got to be an umbrella.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we've actually saw a pretty cool thing that we're about to buy for our beach trip in 36 days.
You're counting down.
Always. So it's a blanket, goes on the beach, but it's got layers to it, so the sand sifts through and never is on the actual blanket. So.
Did you read the reviews?
No.
I would just recommend maybe reading the reviews before you order. That sounds like an impossibility. I hate to disappoint you.
Bubble bursted. So maybe I won't purchase that. We'll see, though. Have you seen the same thing and read the reviews? Oh, you're just
basing it off your description.
There's layers, and it's a grid base, and so it ciphers through so it doesn't come back up. So I don't know.
Okay. Good luck. Enjoy
Next question.
Enjoy the beach.
I'll go play golf.
And the rash. So
here's a leadership question.
All right.
And this could be when you walk into school and when you're on a team at school, whether it's basketball or a project, whatever it might be, or as you're maybe a senior or someone going into the workforce, how would you go about establishing your credibility quickly with the team?
Oh, coming in as the leader or coming in just as a team member?
Twofold.
Okay.
Give them both.
I think if you're coming in as the team member, it's assessing. I think you've got to look at the environment that you're coming into. You're looking at the gifts and the strengths of the other team members, and either coming alongside or filling the void. Whatever the void may be, then step in that to make the team a whole. A lot of times people will come in and go, well, this is what I do. And what you do may be great, but it may actually be a hindrance to what the team is currently doing. And I think that's where alignment comes in, knowing a vision. When you come into a team or even into a workplace, where are we going so that I know I'm filling the void that gets us there, whatever that may be. I think we saw that even with you when you came on the team was primarily we said, hey, we need a student pastor. And then realizing the alignment where we were going as a church, we said, no, this makes more sense to move him into this next gen thing. And you did that really quickly and easily. And I think, so I would say making sure you're assessing when you walk in. If you're coming in as a leader, you're assessing also. You want to know the strength of your team. And if it's baseball, I want to know who my cleanup hitter is. I want to know who my quick guys are. I want to know where the gloves are. You know, if it's basketball, the same thing. Or if it's a workforce, if I've got a sales team over here that's killing it and I've got my task team over here that's just doing the day-to-day, I want to make sure I'm investing in each of those teams to make sure that they know, keep doing what you're doing. And I've got to take a little bit of time to assess to make sure I don't change something that doesn't need to be changed. So
I think either way, flexibility and adaptability is going to be huge in that. You said assessing the situation, but then you have to go and move from that because you may have been hired in a certain area, but being a team member is just that. A team means that you are all in for whatever needs taking place, whether that means learning something new and going for it or doing what you're good at. And so I think being flexible is huge when it comes to being on a team and carrying out the mission of that team because roles are always going to be fluid, based on what that project looks like. Mm-hmm. You may be the lead of the project or you may be a hand in the project depending on what direction it's going and the capabilities of everybody else on the team.
Yeah, I think when I think about it and I watch what I see currently culture-wise, the reality that everybody hits. And I mean that across the board, not just a baseball analogy, but everybody hits. No one starts on third base. So if you're coming into a team, you can't expect to be on third base. Like I'm here, I've arrived.
It's really good.
Everybody has to hit. You've got to go through the paces of getting to the other play. Now you may have all the experience, and you may even feel like you deserve to be on third base. You still got to swing the bat to go through the places and the paces to get to home. So, I think that's a good mindset because you mentioned students coming out of their senior year, stepping into the workforce. You may have been killing it in high school. You may have been killing it even at the college level, but you're about to step into a completely different realm where no matter how well you did here, you've got to step back in the batter's box. You've got to swing the bat. You've got to make contact. You've got to get to the first step, then the next step, then the third step, and then finally you get to score. But that's the only way anybody scores. You don't get to start halfway through. So
I think off the baseball thing, because that's a really cool way to put it, is always being ready too.
Yeah.
Because you may be an all-star that's came onto the team, but at the backside of your career or whatever, but there's going to be a point in time where you are called upon to fulfill a task. Mm-hmm. And you may be coming in as a slugger, and they say, no, right now we just need we need you to get on base.
Right.
And we don't need you to just hit one out of the park and leave us kind of stranded, but we need runs here.
Right.
And so you always be ready for whatever's being called upon you at that time.
Yeah, that's good.
So
that's good. It's my turn on the question.
Go for it.
All right, here we go. Bucket o' questions. If you were at a business lunch and you ordered a rare steak and they brought it to you well done, what would you do?
Ooh. That's like spectrums. That's
right.
That's botching it. That's not just coming out. And here's something I struggle with in this is like Kaylee's dad always talked about the proper way to cut a steak to check it. I don't know that. I just cut it and go.
Right.
Let's go for it.
Do you cut a complete piece off or do you just slice and open it up?
I slice and open.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. So I don't know if that's the right way or the wrong way.
I don't either. That's just how I do it.
I'm not too particular about it. It depends on probably who I'm around and those kinds of things or what the business lunch is even about. If we're there and trying to get something done over this conversation, probably would just leave it and let it be. Not going to make a big deal about it because you have other people there also who have time schedules and different things to pay attention to and trying to respect them in that manner. Right. So you don't want to be the person that's sending a plate back and everybody else's day is being shifted because they're waiting on you and trying to be respectful for you to eat,
right?
But you're disrespecting everybody else in that moment. If we're just there for a family dinner and if we have no agenda, probably check it, send it back. If it's botched a second time, a little worse, just kind of deal with it, mention it again. This is fine. We'll go from here. We're not worried about it.
Right.
I try and be very courteous and polite to servers in those kind of ways because their business, their job is difficult. You don't know what other people have reacted like throughout the day.
Sure.
And those kinds of things. So not make too big of a deal out of it, if make a big deal of it at all. So
yeah, I think for me, same thing at the dinner. Or I can I can eat steak anyway. I have my preferences. Well done would be the least of my preferences. And before I really get into this any further, I just want to speak directly to you and give you a life lesson out there. Don't ever put ketchup on a steak.
Please don't.
Just don't do that. It's not good stuff. All right.
Mix it a hamburger.
Back to our regularly scheduled interview. I think out of consideration for those of us at a business lunch, I am horrible at business lunches because I end up talking through the whole thing and I don't eat real fast or don't finish at all sometimes. And so I don't, it would really delay things if I sent it back. So I would agree with you on that. I think that I would. Now, if we were out with a family, I'm not a real big, hey, you've messed this up, go fix it kind of guy. But if it was a steak and I knew what I'd spent on the steak, depending on the level of my
the
investment.
price is going to be
the level of my
in
investment would determine how adamant I was about making sure they got it right. So
that's a fair point in that. I'm going to pull one that's not out of the bucket.
Okay.
You've talked a little bit over the last year and a half or so about praying that people just have the call in their life and that people will be placed in ministry or just have a heart for the house. Can you expound on that a little bit more, what that looks like, or maybe even how that becomes apparent to people or that desire to start?
Yeah, I think that growing up for me, the call was I was raised in a pastor's house, so I always heard the language called. I'm called to preach. I'm called to missions. I'm called. And so I guess maybe because of the prevalence of the language and just knowing that this was something that actually occurred made me open to receiving it. And what I've been finding in my years as a pastor is that it gets spoken about less and less and less and less. And a lot of times ministry is just pursued as an occupational option. I think I may want to be a preacher, or I may want to be, I may want to go into ministry. Well, most of the times I think we see those type of endeavors fall short, because if you're not called to do this, if God hasn't really laid a burden on your heart, there are other things you could do. Now I feel as I'm called. I know you believe you're called to this, and so I can't imagine doing something else. But I think that keeping an open mind as a student or a young person or anybody that's going, how do I know if God is calling me? This coming Sunday, I'm preaching a message on seeking God, and I think if you continually are putting the things of God in front of you, then you're going to just be more apt to hear the voice of God within you. And so for me, it was just I was in, constantly at church camps. I was in revival services in the night that God had called me long before I surrendered. But just knowing that voice and being close enough to Him to know, man, this is something that you're asking me to do. And what a great honor. Just talked with our interns about it on Tuesday, the honor of being called, because not everybody gets it. Now, all Christians are, all those that are saved, those that follow Christ, we have responsibilities as believers. But even within that, there's another level of those that God has said, hey, I have something specific that I want you to do. And so I would say to you, if you're watching, if you're a young person, you go, I just feel like God's urging me and I don't know what to do with it. Find somebody and talk through it, because I would hate for you to miss God really speaking into your soul and speaking into your life, and you missing an opportunity to step into ministry if that's what God's called you to do. I just think we talk about it less. I think just churches, we don't mention the call. I don't know if it's odd or weird for people to think about it, but I just think it's not talked about enough, so we don't see it as often.
I think a lot of times we don't know how to give them the opportunity, whether it's students or someone later on in life, the opportunity to see what that call might look like or where giftings can fit into the church. Because so many people just feel called to ministry means I'm going to preach.
Right.
And there's so many layers to churches now in leadership in those. I mean, there's there's graphic design and there's custodial things and there's finance. So there's so many layers that being called to ministry doesn't mean you have to stand on the platform.
Right.
And there's giftings that you're able to use to grow the kingdom, whether it's front of house or back of house.
Yeah, I think that right now in our internship the last 2 years, it's one of the things we've had to cover discover the most is when we talk about being called to ministry, everybody assumes I've got to, move to Africa and be on the mission field. I've got to preach on Sunday, or I've got to play the guitar and be a worship leader. And everything else is just kind of what we fill around, and they miss the call to children's ministry, or they miss the call to admin, they miss all of those things. And so we really try to open that up in our internship, with the fall coming and the new opportunities we're going to have here at Real Life Church with the college options coming in, where students and those that are wanting to pursue secondary education can do that with a ministry emphasis right here at the church is going to be incredible, I think, in people being able to go, man, I feel called to ministry. How do I pursue that? And now we're going to have some options locally where they can pursue it. So
I think something too with the layers is people don't realize how much like that second chair or those back end kind of positions encourage people on the stage. Like the day-to-day, the big stuff wouldn't happen without the encouragement and the help from those on the backside doing whatever they do, whether it's a smiling face or helping logistically and those kinds of things that make a huge difference in just the whole operation in general.
Well, yeah, I think it's, there's no way, and you know this, and because you're here on Sundays, but there's no possible way I, as the pastor, could make a Sunday work. Right. And it amazes me how often like people come in and they sit down and they grab that connection card, they grab that offering envelope, and there's very little thought to the reality that somebody had to put that offering envelope there or that connection card there, or that somebody came in on a Thursday and swept and mopped the floor where there was coffee spilled or whatever. So yeah, from that all the way up to who makes phone calls during the week, who is prepping children's curriculum through the week that doesn't happen on Sundays. So many opportunities to get in and serve Christ, and so many ways to jump in and volunteer and do that, much less the call of ministry. There's just so many opportunities in the local church now to be involved that even when I was growing up, I don't know that I was made aware, of those things. I would go to the church at night and I would preach to an empty room, and because if I felt I was called, then that's what it had to be, because my dad was a preacher, so I was supposed to be a preacher. Now, it wasn't until much later that I actually received a call to ministry and to pastoring. But yeah, if I'd have known, or I think if others would have known, there'd be more people in ministry, that there's just option upon option upon option. If we listed all the detailed jobs that were done at the church, it'd be ridiculous. So
okay, I'm going to ask two more, and then we'll get back into the bucket.
All right.
One is kind of out there, because you kind of mentioned preaching and whatnot. That how much time do you spend prepping a message for the week leading up to?
Probably, if I have a thought that hits, or if we're in a series, it's a little easier to be, tracking where we're going. Preaching has always come pretty natural to me as far as the communicating part of it. So I see, and I'm in my 20th year, so it doesn't take as long as it once did, because the way I read a text, a lot of times it'll fall into place as I'm reading, and God will kind of show and go, hey, this is 1, 2, and 3. I'm usually a 3-point guy. But probably I would say if it's something that I haven't tackled before, if it's a brand new sermon that I'm preaching, it'll take me probably about 2 hours of just sitting down and putting all the thoughts together in what I would call an outline form. But then there are days of work before that of, okay, I want to go this direction. What does that mean? Or we did a series a few years back called Party People. It was really great here at the church. But I had several people researching on that one, where they would go and study out the Feast of the Ten. So they would go study out an Old Testament feast so we could come back. And then I would take that. So like some certain series will take anywhere from 10 to 16 hours of research through the week to get ready to do. And then you're still putting that 2 hours of putting it together. So it's it's most of the week if you're doing something new. If you're going back to a sermon or going back to a thought that you've preached before, then it's not as long, obviously, but you want to just make sure that you're keeping that fresh and presenting again. So.
Any dress rehearsal or dry runs before?
I'm usually reading through it several times. I used to go practice. I used to go when I first started pastoring. I would go and preach. I'd either get to the church really early when no one was there and just kind of walk through it. I'm a big proponent of body language and how you communicate a sermon matters a whole lot in our current culture. And so making sure that how you present the sermon is really crucial too. So making sure your body never, I don't ever want my back to the audience. And so some of those things now are more natural than they used to be. So I had to work on them early on. So I would go dry run or practice or walk through.
See, I have to do, if I'm going to give a message on Sunday, then I have to dry run, come in on Friday, whenever I do it, because timing difference.
Okay.
Because it's going to be a little bit longer than a Wednesday night message is going to be. But at the same time, while knowing that, I'll add stuff and add stuff and add stuff. So I'll have to come in and have to be like, okay, I need to trim this back or I need to add to it. So right. I have to do that anytime I'm doing a Sunday. I have to come and do a dry run.
Oh, really?
That. Yep.
So I had a pastor ask me this question one time in preaching, because you've had preachers that preach, hours, like I think Furtick preaches about an hour every time he preaches, and there's other guys that preach shorter or longer. The question was raised, how long are you good?
That's a really good question. I would say I'm right at 30 is right, because I can go that 25 to 35 and then just wrap it up right around 30, that's a balance of that youth to Sunday morning kind of, I would say. Because I try and hit about 20 on youth and then 35-ish on a Sunday is usually. Yeah. So I think 30 is right about my wheelhouse in that. So, but sometimes I'll come in and I'll have it at 50 and I'm like, oh, wow.
Yeah, that's a long time.
And then have to cut it way back.
Right. So it's been really interesting. We've had people comment on the Sunday service thing since we've been online of how it's shorter. Pastor Benz, why aren't you preaching longer? Those kind of things, because it's very different in here now. Just now looking at the camera and having this conversation with you is very different than preaching in a room of people where you're hearing the immediate feedback. And so, but I would say for me, I'm in that probably 30 to 40 minute window. If it's something that's really been unpacked and studied and laid on my heart, I think I can get to 40. 35 is probably the sweet spot for me. But like you said, I think at 35, I need to probably start landing the plane, so to speak.
Perfect. Okay, last one before we do a couple more out of the bucket. When you are talking about leadership, whether it's to a student or your kids, someone on the team, or just a business leader in town, what are some of the things you really try to drive home about being a leader? Is it integrity? Is it organization? What are things that you're like, every leader needs to be able to, is it learning? What is it?
Yeah, I think that every leader's got to be self-aware. You have to know your insecurities. And one of the things that God has really been impressing upon me over the last several years is the idea of stop asking for help and start asking for healing. I think that a lot of times leaders come in with this idea that this is how I do it, not realizing that every leader has kind of a dark side, a why behind why we do this. Some leaders are really aggressive, but the reason they're aggressive not all the time is because they want to get stuff done, but because they have a need to feel like the leader, and that comes from an insecurity. So I would say self-assessment, making sure that you're aware of your dark side stuff, of your insecurities, of the things that fall short in you, because if you lead out of them, you'll only last so long. If you learn to heal from them, they become a strength so that you lead longer. So I would say knowing yourself in leadership. Obviously, integrity is a big thing in leadership. Being teachable. I used to say every leader is a reader. And I've come across some people in my life that just despise reading, but they are leaders. And so I think the term has to change and say every leader is a learner, whether it's a podcast, whether it's an article, whether it's a book, whatever, maybe it's sermons, other people's sermons. But I think every leader has to go ahead and submit from the beginning that they have not arrived. And if they if they will submit that I'm not there yet as a leader, then people will want to continue following them into new adventures. And so I think constantly driving forward and being able to say, you know what, we don't know it all yet. Maybe there is something new out there that we haven't seen or we haven't grasped onto, and it's okay if we look at it. I think that's been what was the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. I think so. As you're learning and you're attaching that learning to your leading, it's going to push you into new things, which will cause you to grow, and it'll cause your team to grow too. So,
I think for me, the big three are going to be buy into a vision, into a goal, whatever that is, coming onto that team as a lead or one of the leaders of the team, honor into another leader around you, or to God, or to the vision and goal.
Right.
And then the third one, I think, is going to be that learning, because you don't know what you're going to have to be in those areas, and you're going to be adaptable in every one of those situations. And I think in those three, though, honor is the one that we throw out a lot of times.
Yeah.
And because if you're the lead, you ultimately still probably aren't the lead, whether it's leading a church or leading a mission. God set something on your heart, and you're having to honor him through whatever the process is that you're bringing in that.
For sure.
And then if you're a second chair leader, someone who's serving you in that, you have a heart, you have a vision for the church, and God's placed a vision on your heart, and we're here to carry out and honor you in that as well. And how we honor you is how we honor God in that at the same time.
Yeah. I agree with you. The honor thing is something that we end up setting aside, and honor doesn't mean, unabashed obedience, but it's, hey, I believe that God has laid this on that leader's heart, and because I believe that, I'm able and willing to follow the vision of that. And it may not mean, it may be outside my preference, it may be even outside my comfort zone, but again, I'm going to step in an honor position to do that. And I think it's great. One of the core values that we have is we have your back, as far as our staff goes, that, I will always protect, the staff here at the church. Now, obviously, if there's blatant sin, we're going to address it, but that doesn't mean I'm going to hang somebody in the streets because of it. It means that I'm going to do my best to protect the family, protect the integrity of that person as they're walking through that. But that's an honor principle. So,
I said one more last one before the bucket question. As you've mentioned, you want to see people called. That's our heart. That's a desire here. What is something else you want to see out of the generations coming up now? Whether it's called buy into the church, what is your kids, their friends? What is something you just want to see start to take root, or you're seeing take root, and you're excited about?
Well, I would say for something that I would love to see more of, but then I'm also starting to see it. So I think it's the same answer to both of those questions, is that there's been a real lull, I think, in the things of God being priority. We're super busy. We're very busy people. The culture is very busy. You're very busy, and you may not even made it to this point in the video yet, but you're culturally, there are a million other things that are fighting to get in the way. And I would love to see just that, the non-negotiable thought of, hey, what are you doing Sunday? Well, I'm going to church. That's not negotiable. That's not something that we might go to church, or or what's going on Wednesday night? Well, I'm going to be at youth. I'm going to be in students. I'm going to be, there's a mission trip coming up. I would love to see that still. And that starts with us as parents, you as a parent of a young child. Those are things that we have to to lean into our kids and go, hey, this has to elevate to the top, because everything else will flow from it. Everything else. I played sports in school. I played sports in the summer. I had all those things, but I can remember the priority that was, it's Sunday. If you want to do something, great, but you need to plan it after 12 o'clock, because before that, the morning is God's. That morning is God's, and you're going to be in church. Or Wednesday night, it was a non-negotiable as far as, do your kids go to church? And I've heard parents sometimes like, well, they got in trouble, so they're not going to church. It's the wrong premise. If we don't take away basketball practice, or we don't take away baseball practice, or we don't take away some of those things, God forbid we be a culture and a generation that takes away the thing that should be first. So, I am seeing it in certain students. my son Braden this morning, he posted a picture of Ravi Zacharias, and it just said one of the greats, and it was a clip of Ravi speaking out in bold defending of the faith, and but not only him, but some of our other kids, Mojica and Grayson, and some of these young people that we have. I'm starting to see where they're not perfect by any stretch, none of us are, but I'm starting to see where the elements of faith are becoming here. And that's allowing other things to trickle and other things to maybe work on their behalf because it's first. So
awesome, fantastic. Well, you can ask me a question out of the bucket. I'll spin it back, and then we'll get this wrapped up. Hopefully, it's a funny one. But
oh no,
we're going off the deep end again.
We are. If you could get rid of any of the U.S. states, which one would you get rid of and why?
Texas. No doubt. Texas. See you later. Boomer sooner. You're not even worthy.
Okay, so this is taken strictly from a sports a sporting background, right?
Yes.
Okay. Goodness. I've been in most all the states. So I think the one that is the most, I'm not sure I'm in a state, has been probably Wyoming.
I was going to say, anything up like the Dakotas, you can probably just wipe off and don't
Well, yeah,
know.
I don't know that anybody, I mean, other than the people that lived there,
right,
which is seven people. No, they're great. We love the Dakotas and Wyoming. But I was doing some mission work, and we were coming through Wyoming, and there was like a road sign that said, 276 miles to the next facilities. And I thought,
wow.
There's nothing here, There's tumbleweeds and pavement, and so I don't know if I could really tell where northern Colorado ended and the Dakotas started because Wyoming was just blank. So I'm sure there are beautiful parts of it, but that would be the one I guess I would pick. So
Kaylee's dad is actually from Wyoming.
Oh, Kaylee, I'm sorry.
But I've never been, so it's all good. Well, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
You can take these Oreos to enjoy the rest
Yes, we didn't finish the row. I told you when I get to talking, I don't eat. So,
and I'm the same way in that also. But if you wouldn't mind, would you pray for us, pray for our student ministry,
Absolutely.
Pray for our church as we wrap this up?
Absolutely. Father, you are such a good God, and you are so gracious to us, and you've been so good to us, even in this time that's been odd, Lord, this season that we've had. And Lord, we're thankful that we're being able to come out of that. We're thankful that we're going to be able to meet again soon as in person. And so, Lord, I just thank you for that. But God, I come to you now lifting up the students of not only our church, but just students in general that are in a world and in a culture that is seemingly running away from you. And Lord, I just pray that those students would hear your heart, that they would hear your voice, they would hear your call in their life, and that they would be the generation that radically changes a movement, God, that radically comes in and loves the things of God and loves his church. And Lord, that they would be a part of that. So I pray for our students. I pray for our student ministry, our next-gen ministries here at the church, from nursery all the way up. And God, I pray for the future college opportunities here at the church. God, I pray for Real Life Church and every other life-giving, gospel-preaching church in our area. God, that we would continue to be on the front lines of the gospel, that we would begin sharing and continue sharing your name, and that you are the hope of this world. We ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Well, thank you again.
Absolutely.
Before we kick off of here, real quick, don't forget, June 7th, we are back.
Woo-hoo.
We are rocking and rolling here at Real Life Church at 9:30 and 11 that Sunday morning. So be here, get ready to serve, get ready to worship, get ready to learn and lean in. Also, if you're graduating a senior, we're going to honor you guys here the following week after that on the 14th. So make sure we have your info so we can get all those details out to you. If you want a shirt, we've got a rerun on the We Will Own white long sleeves. I think that's all I've got for you. Follow us on Instagram. We will see you guys later.
See y'all.